Hi, my name's Penny. Welcome to my channel. Today I wanted to talk about the books that I read during the Tome Topple Readathon. So if you don't know, the Tome Topple Readathon is a 2-week readathon that's just finished where the focus is on reading books that are greater than 500 pages. And I'm pretty proud of myself because I did manage to read 6 books. That's 6 books that are over 500 pages. Although I do have to admit that I've been a bit MIA on BookTube lately, and Tome Topple probably didn't help, although sometimes you've just got to prioritize reading. But also, I think a big culprit here is winter. It is like the middle of winter here, although starting to get better just a little bit, and I don't like winter. I'm honestly counting down the days at the moment until daylight savings. 76 days, when I will finally be able to get home from work and enjoy a bit of sunshine. Anyway, that is enough of excuses. I do promise I will come and watch other people's videos soon. But let's talk about the books that I read. So firstly, I had an audiobook that I was listening to on my commute. The first one I picked up was Arms Commander by Modesitt Jr. This is the 16th, 15th, I don't know, the somethingth of the Saga of Recluce series, which I've been reading for a while. I think there's 20 books. I'm getting there. As I've explained in the past, this is kind of a historical fantasy series where you have this chaos magic and order magic, and it's all about the balance between the two. This particular book is about these people who have come from a different dimension where they were fighting a space war, and because of the mind powers that they were using or something, it's been a while since I actually read the original one where they came through. Basically, because of their mind powers, they somehow ended up in this other dimension where they have landed on this planet that all the other books are placed in. And their dimension is obviously they're in space, so they've got quite advanced technology, but now they've lost it all and they have to figure out how to survive. That was an earlier book. This book is set in the future, although I think it's about the middle of Recluse's timeline. Honestly, the Recluse books, they're all over 500 books and there's like 20 books, so there's a lot that goes on. But it just so happens that this particular spaceship is primarily crewed by women, and of course in their society the genders are equal, so that's what they're used to, and they come into this more traditional war kind of society, and they are amazing warriors, and they kind of freak everyone out and turn the patriarchy on its head, which is really cool. But it's also I think throughout it the characters are very frustrated with having to deal with this because it just seems so ridiculous to them, and to be honest I also felt a bit bored by it. Like sometimes some feminism, it's like yes I know, like are we really still having to have these conversations? Seriously? I mean, I know we do, but I will also note, of course, this is written by a man, and what did put me off is this is, I think, the first book written by Modesitt Jr. from a female perspective. However, the narrator for this series has been male all through the series, and they used the same narrator. So it totally did my head in. For the first half of the audiobook, I couldn't get it into my head who this character really was, because it was a woman, but it was a man. I don't know why they didn't get a woman to narrate it. So then the next book that I picked up was an e-book for while I was walking around, and that was The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. This book was amazing. Like, if you watch BookTube, you've probably heard about this book, and I have to thoroughly agree with all the positive reviews that I've heard about it. I mean, I would say that it is a little bit hard to relate to some of the characters. So the premise of this book is that we have a man who needs to solve the murder of Evelyn Hardcastle, but he's doing it through reliving the same day, and each day he is in the body of a new person, and he doesn't know who are his other selves, and every time he's in a body he kind of gains the skills of that person. Honestly, it's just the way that it slowly reveals the mystery, all the twists and turns. It was amazing. But I will say that it is true that some of the characters that he is placed in are not very likable, or they have traits that are very negative. So sometimes it was quite hard to relate to the characters, even though at his core he's still him. It's a very strange book. I actually think I am going to read it. It's the kind of book that now I know the mystery, I want to go back and read it so that I can see all the hints of how things were coming together that I would clearly have missed right at the beginning. I'm sure of it. Or like I read it and I was like, whoa, what's going on? Whereas if I read it again now, I'll be like, oh, I know what's happening. So overall, just an amazing concept, and I would highly recommend it. So then the next book that I read is Illuminae by Amie Kaufman and Jacques Kristoff, and I'm super proud because at the start of the year, there were 10 books that I said I wanted to read this year, and this is the first one of those that I've actually got into. Yay. Obviously, this is another book that is hugely hyped on BookTube. You basically follow these two teenagers who have just broken up, and then the planet that they're living on, which is an illegal mining colony, gets attacked, and they have to basically they end up on the run in a spaceship. And the story is told through like multimedia, so like emails and video logs and all sorts of chats and different things. So it is a really interesting format, although I will say for the first half I found quite a lot of it not very believable. Like there's a lot of, I guess, personality or style in a lot of the writing that I don't necessarily believe would be in the kind of documents that are being referred to here, or a lot of them anyway. Also, a significant piece of this book is romance, and I really just don't like romance that much, or I only like romance like on the side. And as this is a science fiction, I wasn't really expecting a lot of romance. There is a lot of romance. Also, I was really sold on this book with the idea that there is some time travel. There was no time travel. Perhaps it is in the next 2 books of the series, but I was disappointed by the lack of time travel. Oh, but what I will say about the format, even though I did think that the first half of it was quite unbelievable, I do think that I really liked what it allowed him to do in the second half of the book, and I guess that was the key reason why he went with this format. I always say he because I have seen Jacques Kristoff talk about this heaps. Obviously, Amie Kaufman as well. I don't know, I think the end did save it a little bit, but overall it was just okay for me. I will continue with the series, but there better be time travel. So then the next thing I picked up is the Snowpiercer graphic novel series. There is books 1, 2, and 3. I don't know why I don't have them in order. So I do think these actually only add up to 480 pages in total, but they're still massive and it was a lot to get through. So I think it's close enough, and it follows the spirit of getting you to read things that you're intimidated by. This graphic novel series is a series that the Snowpiercer movie was based on. Basically, the world is now frozen over because of some climate disaster, and the remaining humans are all on this train which has to keep moving or otherwise they will die. And all the 1,000 carriages all have a different theme, and they have ways of producing food, and kind of the people up the front in the first class carriages are very well treated, whereas the people in the back are in horrible, horrible conditions. So I had heard not very good reviews about it, and I have to say that they were probably true, although I did quite enjoy the first one. I think I gave the first volume 4 stars. It's definitely a really cool concept, and I quite like the 2 main characters in this particular volume. But then the next 2 volumes primarily follow 2 other characters, one of them being an explorer who actually goes off the train into the freezing world to find things, and then number 3 where they end up in this train station with all sorts of weird mice people and all sorts of crazy stuff going on. I think, like the movie actually, there were some really great ideas, some really cool concepts, a few really great moments, but in general it was hard to kind of follow what was going on. I didn't really care. The art is not that great, although this particular one did start to use colour. The first one was mainly in black and white. I mean, I did really like these mice men, even though they're a bit weird. I don't know, some great ideas, but not sure about the execution. Then, I will actually say I did go to pick up another audiobook, and that is The Diviners by Libba Bray. I'd heard Witty Novels talking about how it's a really great series, and that she'd read the audiobook and she really liked it, and I needed another audiobook for this readathon, so I thought I would pick it up. And I think I listened to about half an hour of it, and I had to just say, no. I do think that I will read it in physical form, but the audiobook is narrated by the author, and the way that she reads it is very theatrical, and to me it felt like I was being read a children's story, but that isn't how I would picture the words in my head. So if I just focused on the words and thought about how I would read them, I think I would read it in a completely different way. And I know that she's the author, so she probably knows how she would mean to say it, but that's not what I want to listen to. Also, there is this like Ouija board bit where it's like spelling out stuff letter by letter, and she's like shouting it letter by letter, and I have no idea what she's spelling out, because when someone's just shouting letters at me, my brain does not translate that into words, and it was just awful. And so I had to give up on reading that or listening to that audiobook, but I do definitely want to pick it up, I think. So then what I ended up doing for audiobooks is I ended up listening to most of Elantris on audiobook. I had actually read about the first 100 pages in physical form, but then it was getting close to the end of the readathon, and I thought, oh, I need more audiobooks, and I'm never going to get through this 600 and something pages, so I listened to the audiobook. It was actually an okay audiobook in terms of narration, although I will say, for one of the main characters, Raoden, the accent that the narrator would put on when he was talking sounded like Zach Brannigan from Futurama. You know, that guy who's always trying to come on to Layla? I haven't watched Futurama in a while, but he's like really over the top and acts like a hero, but he's actually like a complete klutz idiot, very up himself. And so Raoden in this book is like a prince who is actually very heroic and cares for people and does very like altruistic things, and so he would be talking like Zach Brannigan but actually be serious, but it took a while for my brain to accept that he was actually being serious and that he wasn't Zach Brannigan. What else could I say about this book? It's Brandon Sanderson, so clearly it was amazing. Brandon Sanderson always has amazing world building. This one is his first book, actually, and I have had some people say this isn't a good place to start because his writing isn't as good as some of his other books. I still thought it was amazing. I don't even know if I can have a go at explaining what this book is about. I'll try. Basically, there used to be this beautiful city called Elantris where people would suddenly be blessed and they would get glowing skin and white hair and they would gain magical powers and they would go to live in Elantris, and people treated them like gods. Then the Raod happened and their magic stopped working, and instead of people being blessed and becoming beautiful, they would instead get disease. Their skin would start shriveling up and they'd get black spots and their hair would fall out, and so then they just started anyone like that. I think they call it the Shaod. They would lock them up in Elantris. And these people who are in Elantris, their hearts no longer beat, their wounds no longer heal, but they don't need anything to survive. They don't need air, they don't need food, but they're not really alive. So they're having a pretty bad time. The prince wakes up right near the beginning and he has become one of these people, so he gets locked up in Elantris. You've also got this princess from another land who's come over to marry him. She's kind of, because of the wedding contract, she is married to him even though she thinks he's dead, but he's not really dead. And there's also this priest from this other religion who's coming, trying to convert everyone in the city in the next 3 months, or otherwise his god has said that he is going to destroy the city and So this priest is trying to convert everyone before that happens. And of course, all their storylines get wrapped up and interwoven, and the magic system is amazing, and the reveals are amazing. It's Brandon Sanderson. It's amazing. Okay, then I read one last book. I've already returned it to the library. In fact, I returned it a day late. Oops. So that is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. This book is another book that's been hyped a lot on BookTube lately. And I'm a little bit conflicted as to whether it deserves that hype. It's basically a fantasy series based on historical China. And we've got this girl basically escaping the slums to go and study at the university where she's able to learn a form of magic. So for the first third of this book, I was totally on board with what everyone else was saying. I was really enjoying it. I thought it was very reminiscent of The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I loved the main character and how determined she was and how scrappy she was. She was just really great. And then after the first part, like the book is broken up into 3 parts. After the first part, I felt like the story really wasn't about her anymore. The events that were happening were more happening around her and to people around her rather than actually happening to her. And I also started thinking that a lot of the decisions she was making didn't really fit with the original character, or at least a lot of the decisions she was making I thought were obviously terrible decisions, and so it made it really hard for me to relate to her. So in the end I was only able to give it 3 stars, which was a bit disappointing. I do really like the world and the magic, so I am quite hopeful for the rest of the series, but we'll have to see what happens. Okay, I feel like I have been talking forever and this is gonna be a real pain to edit. Hopefully though, I will make sure that I do edit it rather than just filming this and then leaving it on my computer until it's been too long and then it doesn't make sense to edit it anymore, which is what happened to my Tome Topple TBR video. I filmed it, I changed my plans about what I was gonna read. It was the end of the Tome Topple. There's no point editing it anymore, so that was a waste of time. But this is half an hour of footage, so let's hope that this isn't a waste of time. If you did the Tome Topple Readathon, then let me know what you read. If you filmed a video, wrap-up video, then let me know down below. If you've read any of the books that I've read, then I would love to talk to you about them, again, down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. This is probably a really long video. Sorry about that, but thank you. See you later.